Hey, it's Suzette Beardine. I'm redefining my 60s on my own terms and hopefully helping others to do the same. Please like, share, subscribe so that hopefully others who are looking for this kind of content can benefit from it. And what I've been told by men and women alike is that my content isn't just for women in their 60s, that the information shared can really be of benefit to men and younger women too. So if you are that and you're listening, hey, I'm so glad I've been able to share something that was a benefit to you too. I'm continuing my discussion on how to properly vet a potential partner. In your 60s, true, but I'm finding that there's not much difference in the lack of information and self-knowledge between women in their 20s and some women I've talked to, observed, and even my own journey in my 50s, my early 50s. So I wanted to share some insights that I learned along the way that helped me to go from failed attempts at love and being with people who could not meet my needs but trying to make the most of it, because I made a commitment, just all these things, to marriage ending, divorcing twice, subsequent failed relationships, failed attempts at love that just did not pan out the way I wanted them to, a yearning in my soul for partnership but yet not being able to figure out how to make that happen, to getting more information, to learning more about myself, for daring to look outside of the normal places, to daring to be honest with myself, daring to dig deeper until I connected with something that I could respect and honor about myself and form conviction around it, learning the difference between preferences and standards, learning that I was worthy, learning how to show up authentically in my romantic relationships, learning how to recognize men who could love me and provide support to me as me, that I didn't have to continue to get over a bad relationship, reclaim my voice. I didn't have to get over being treated wrong. I didn't have to go through all that kind of thing. By the time I got to the relationship before I married my now husband, that relationship I felt like was just for me to see with my own eyes how much I had grown. And I was able to exit that relationship without any hurt, without any regret, without feeling like I needed therapy to find myself again, without needing a project, without needing a makeover, without anything. I exited it more certain of my value and my worthiness, and more certain that I was not going to stop at that, but that, in my own words, somebody's black son was going to love me. I had a conviction about it that wasn't just a hope, but it came from a conviction inside of myself of my own worthiness. And so I learned a lot of things on the way to that. It didn't just happen. I tell people, no, I worked for that. And the work was not changing the way I look, changing the way I talk. It wasn't like that. It wasn't external. The work was to dig deep enough inside of myself to really connect with myself authentically, and to see the value in who I was becoming, the dragons I had slayed on my own. And I just learned that, and then I learned about men, how to recognize the kind of man that could be a soft place and a safe place for me to move forward and become my best self and to live my best life in partnership. So that's kind of like the Cliff Note version of what really is the foundation for the things that I'm sharing, that are questions that you need to either ask of a potential partner, or ask of yourself, or both, as you move forward. The previous episode I talked about direction and strategy. This one I'm going to talk about sex and intimacy. I say this specifically to people who grew up like me, and especially women who are church women. I don't want to say churchy, but yeah, that you are devout in your faith. You are members of your church. You are churched. Yeah. You go to church, you listen to the word, you Christians in your faith, you believe in God. Some people will call you religious because you go to church, you listen, you might be part of the singles ministry, but you are definitely involved in the church culture. I'm speaking specifically to you when it comes to sex and intimacy, because I feel like we can get really hung up in being able to use scripture to justify fantasy, to use scripture to sound like we are more relationship intelligent than what we really are. And we can use scripture to explain, clarify what went wrong in a previous relationship. Oftentimes I hear women say, the reason my relationship failed was because that man was everything to me, and you know God is a jealous God and he won't have no one before him, so he let that thing fail because I loved that man more than I loved him, and he wasn't going to let me do that. I hear things like that. I hear stuff like I stopped going to church. I stopped reading my word. That man became my God. I hear that. He wasn't my Boaz. I hear that. And underneath that, this has been my observation, and also what we would get down to even in those deep talks with people, and even me digging deep inside of myself for truth, is that we can use scripture as a smoke screen that keeps us from really looking behind the curtain and admitting the real truth behind why we did what we did, why we allowed what we allowed. And you can spiritualize it, but I think sometimes the spiritualization of it is within itself a defense mechanism that keeps us from being really honest. A lot of times we do things because we're afraid. I know back when I was growing up, a lot of times people would rush into marriages saying, it's better to marry than to burn. It's like, okay, I'm going to get married because I'm afraid that if I don't get married to this person, I'm going to fail God because I'm going to fornicate, or I'm going to fail God because I'm going to commit adultery. I'm going to fail God because I'm going to enter into some kind of immoral activity. And because I don't trust myself, I can grab this scripture that's better to marry than to burn. He that findeth a wife is a good thing. Or the latest thing is I'm looking for a purpose partner. You can spiritualize a whole lot of dysfunction and even justify a trauma bond. You can come up with all these scriptures, and I've seen that happen a lot with the church. I've seen men who knew they wanted to sleep with a woman in the church, and they knew that they weren't interested in anything else, but they slept with her, and then after they got what they wanted, then they used scripture to justify why they don't want to continue to be with her. So there's a lot of game playing and people using scripture to justify the way they play in other people's faces, but even worse, the way they play in their own faces, the way they deceive themselves, the way they lie to themselves. Instead of admitting, you know what, I found this person sexually attractive. And so in order for me not to engage in premarital sex or to keep engaging in premarital sex, I got to turn this into a relationship that's going somewhere, that's going toward marriage, so that I don't feel like I am betraying God, betraying myself, living in sin, so that I can absolve my own guilt. I'm going to do this. And I would dare say that the reason why a lot of women, and this is just my theory, the reason why a lot of women that I have observed in church have fallen prey to unscrupulous men, or men that were immature, or men that lacked integrity, or men that could not love them the way they desired to be loved, is because of the spiritualization of the lies they tell themselves. But if they can put a scriptural spin on it, it makes them sound very spiritual in their reasoning and in their rationalization. But it only shows that they really don't truly know their true value and their true worth. And so I really want to deal with sex and intimacy, because I feel like so many people are afraid of falling into immorality that they don't even allow themselves to go through the depth they need to go to even experience intimacy. They're so afraid of sinning that they don't know how to be intimate. They have never experienced true intimacy and allowed the relationship to deepen naturally, organically, and in a healthy way, because they're so afraid of themselves. They're afraid they're going to sin. They're afraid that they can't trust themselves. So they cut themselves off from intimacy and accept something less, hoping that in marriage they will experience intimacy. But because neither party knows how to, they end up with a deeper yearning and an unmet need that causes them frustration, even in a marriage. Intimacy, I believe, is the yearning for connection. It's a yearning. It is a natural thing. It is part of our human makeup to yearn for connection. Now, there are different kinds of connection. And in a dating, romantic situation, you're yearning for connection. You're yearning for intimacy. And when you meet someone that you have chemistry with, it triggers for a lot of churched people a fear of vulnerability. They're afraid of their own vulnerability because they feel like they're going to lose control. They're going to weaken themselves, and therefore someone will be able to take advantage of them, or they're going to disappoint God, and they're going to fail God in some way. And it's going to cause them to deal with guilt and shame. And so what I want to present to you is learning who you are and learning to value who you are to the point that you can feel chemistry with someone else. Experience a natural desire to connect, but yet have an inner discipline that doesn't come from fear, but comes from a strong sense of self-worth, self-honor, and self-value. And so a question can be, how will sex support the intimacy in our relationship? What are your beliefs about sex? What are your beliefs about intimacy? A significant part of your own intimacy with yourself is the boundaries that you set. So, does he respect your body? Does he respect your no? When you say no to him, does he respect that? Is he able to respect that, but yet find you attractive, yet find you compelling, not just sexually, but in that part that needs a deeper connection, a deeper soul-to-soul connection, where his heart can be at peace, where his soul can rest? Are you a safe place for his vulnerability? Are you a safe place where he can heal what turns him on about you, and vice versa? And can you hold space for that while yet allowing the relationship to deepen and become more substantive than this fantasy that the chemistry that you feel with someone or the lust that you feel towards someone, that marriage will somehow or another give you an outlet for it, when you have not done what you need to do in building true intimacy into your relationship experience? How comfortable are you in your own skin? How comfortable are you in your own body? How comfortable enough are you with your own sexuality? Are you comfortable in it? Do you feel like you have to make excuses for it, hide parts of yourself? Or have you learned to embrace yourself in the fullness of you? Or are you so afraid? And you're saying you don't trust men, but the truth is your experiences have caused you to not be able to trust yourself. How can you learn to trust yourself as an intimate being, as a sexual being? Those are questions you have to answer for yourself first, so you can have the real conversation that you need to have with a potential partner, when it's time to have it, or all along in the getting to know, that you can talk about sex without being so turned on that you're afraid you're going to lose your sensibilities and lose your way and lose your self-respect. Listen, intimacy requires trust. Intimacy requires trust. Can you share? Do you feel like being with this person continues to build upon your trust for them? Are they consistent in treating you well, honoring you, regardless to whether you agree or disagree? Does this person try to protect you, even if they disagree, even if they're upset with you? Do they have enough regard and respect for you that they don't call you outside your name, that they don't yell at you, that they don't demean you, they don't withhold from you, they don't give you the silent treatment, they don't shame you in some way? That they are putting forth effort to get to know you, to try to understand you? Do you feel like you can tell him anything? Do you feel like he's your protector? Do you find yourself observing him doing things and saying things, doing things for you or saying things about you, and he doesn't even know that you're listening to him? Do the people that mean the most to him know how he feels about you and can co-sign and reinforce that this man is really, really into you for all the right reasons, that he can verbalize and tell them why you mean so much to him? Which goes back to that question, what do you do for him? Are you his safe place? That in a world where he feels misunderstood, or in an experience of his childhood or in other relationships where he did not feel like he was really seen and respected and regarded and of value, has he, by you being naturally yourself, that he has experienced something with you that sets you apart from every other woman he's ever known? Has he found a depth that you satisfy, a depth in him that has longed for connection and intimacy? Whether you're engaged in sexual activity or not. Does he feel like your interaction is a continuation of making love with each other? And I don't mean a whole lot of slobbering and kissing and tonguing, but I mean the way that you touch each other on a deep emotional level. The way you get each other. The way you inspire the king in him. The way that you require the king in him. And he wants to come up to it. He wants to be a better man because of you. All that's intimacy. When you cultivate that, you're not afraid of him touching your shoulder or kissing you, because you know you have something deeper. You don't even feel guilty if it does go into something sexual, because you know it's more than that. It doesn't require a deep, repentant, God, I'm sorry, because something inside of you knows it's deeper. It's real. This person is really good for you. They're not causing you to compromise your values and who you are. Quite the contrary. You feel more yourself with this person. Even when you're doing nothing. Just being in each other's presence. There is nothing that you feel that you have to withhold. There's no conversation that you feel like you can't have. There's no part of you that you feel like you have to hide. You're not afraid of being taken advantage of, because there is a sense of a covenant there. Not because somebody declared it or required it or asked for it, but it's a natural thing. He's just good for your nervous system. You feel at peace. You feel safe. You feel like there's stability in your life, in your emotional life. You feel more mature. You feel more rested. You feel more you. You feel more alive. And there's a passion to it that's bigger than sex. That even if you can't engage in the act, there's still this passion of just needing to be with each other. needing to be together, needing to touch each other, needing to feel each other. Even to this day, I can touch my husband's face and he just melts in my hand. And we're coming up on 14 years or more of knowing each other and going on toward 11 years of being married. And this you can have in your 50s and in your 60s. It doesn't mean it's too late. It doesn't mean it's too late. And so a significant part of trust, of intimacy, is trust. What is something about him that he's confided in you about that nobody else knows? That you know he feels like you're a sacred place, that this can rest without you thinking less of him or without you abusing him or hitting him over the head with it. And likewise, what is something about you that few people know, if anybody, that you know that you can share it with him and it is in a safe space? That's intimacy, y'all. That's intimacy. That's a level of vulnerability and self-disclosure that builds a bond that is more than words, more than vows, more than what the scripture says. You don't have to beat each other over the head with vows or scripture. You're walking in perfected love. Love is being perfected. That perfect love that casts out fear. I believe the real translation is perfected love casts out fear. A love that's been tested, proven, tried. A love that has evidence casts out fear. So what is something about you that few people or nobody knows that if it was shared, it would be a profound betrayal and that you would lose each other emotionally or lose your connection because it's so sacred? It is a deep trust that allowed you to share it. See, this is bigger than not divorcing. This is bigger than keeping vows. It is what keeps you from an emotional divorce. There are a lot of people who are still physically married, but they have emotionally divorced. And I'm saying, broker these questions. Give yourself time so that you can gain emotional currency with one another. That is so significant that it fuels your intimacy. It fuels your sexual experience of each other. And it deepens your bond. It takes time, and it's worth the time that it takes. It's worth it. Okay? So that's a part of intimacy, sex and intimacy. Questions. Not just what positions do you like? Do you believe in oral sex or not? Those are important. What was your last sexual relationship? What is something that you would have wanted to experience in that relationship that you weren't able to experience? What is your sexual fantasy? All those things there are valid, but we miss the point. Trust, intimacy, being handled well. Like my uncle said, making love is the way you pass that poor person their fork in the morning. It's a continuation of what's happened in the bedroom. It's a continuation that your being with each other is loving each other. You're making love even in watching a program and enjoying food together, laughing together. That's all intimacy. Him looking out for you, thinking about you, you thinking about him. You're wanting to respect him. That's all intimacy, and it fuels your sexual relationship. I want to hear from you as always. Put any comments in below the video, and let's keep the conversation going. Okay? And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe so that you get notified of future episodes. Okay? All right. Talk to you more later.